Donald Trump says that the US will sell a $5 million gold card to wealthy foreigners. In today's explosive episode, we're going to dive deep into a controversial proposal that is sending shockwaves throughout America's immigration landscape. President Trump has unveiled his latest headline grabbing plan, a $5 million gold card program named after the green card program targeting wealthy foreign nationals. What exactly is this golden ticket to America? Is this a game changer for US immigration policy or just another political lightning rod? We're going to break down the details from CNN's coverage, examining the implications, controversy, and what this could mean for the future of American immigration, but also global immigration. We're going to compare it to a handful of different golden visa programs around the world. So stay tuned as we unpack this developing story that's got everyone talking. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest developments as they relate to real estate.
Amazing intro. And for context, let's look at the current EB-5 immigrant investor programs. This visa program, the current one, EB-5, the visa program requires foreign investors to make a minimum investment of $800,000 in targeted employment areas, TEAs, which I found out for you are like rural areas or areas with high unemployment. 1.05 million in non-TEA, non-targeted employment areas. The investment must create or preserve at least 10 full-time jobs for US workers. So the program has undergone significant changes since its inception in 1990, with the most recent reforms implemented through the EB-5's Reform and Integrity Act of 2022. So these changes include increased investment amounts, stricter oversight measures, and new integrity provisions to prevent fraud. So of this EB-5, the key requirements of the program include investment amounts of $800,000 in non-TEA areas, or 1.05, like I said, non-TEA. Job creation, it must create or preserve 10 full-time jobs. The source of funds must prove lawful source of investment capital. Active involvement, investors must be engaged in management or policy formation. So Trump's proposed $5 million gold card would represent a significant departure from the current EB-5 framework with a much higher investment threshold, but potentially fewer restrictions and requirements. Interesting.
What are your thoughts on this?
Off the top, it's going to there's a lot of pros and cons. I think pros, obviously what he's trying to do is bring in, high net worth individuals globally. I think this is going to bother a lot of people at the same time. I think it's going to be like we just talked about off there. It's going to just be more divided. I think it's just creating more and more divide, but I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting because, there was the whole H-1B visa thing, like before the inauguration, but there was like all of that stuff going on Twitter around Trump and Elon's comments around the H-1B visa, which is where basically a lot of engineers were coming from India basically to replace jobs that a lot of people felt should have been offered to U.S. engineers. And this is mostly in the software space.
Right.
I think it's interesting to me that Trump is evolving to be like very much a pro-immigration presidency, and he has this whole illegal immigration, deportation, etc. But then he has this thing
Right.
that a lot of the Western world is using right now to grow their economies. Canada being a really notable example, but a lot of Europe as well, is many countries are basically using immigration to grow their population and using the population growth to grow their economy. It hasn't, the reviews of how it's working in other countries have been mixed, and I'll get to that a little bit. But the biggest reason for this is most countries, basically outside of Africa, have seen a decrease in their birth rate and an aging population. And so they have this thing called the replacement rate. Like you need all of these new young people to exist in the economy to pay for the pension obligations of the previous generation. And this is one of those things that's really being critically rethought. Outside of that, because we're going to talk a little bit about housing affordability worldwide in the next episode, but we did talk a lot about the aging populations in one of our last episodes about seniors and the best places to retire. Golden visa programs have become increasingly controversial worldwide, particularly in European countries. Two that we've mentioned on the show before, Portugal and Spain. Portugal recently ended their golden visa program in 2024 after mounting evidence showed its contribution to housing affordability crisis. For this one, it allowed people residency in exchange for real estate investments of 500,000 euros. So basically you go buy a house you can
Right, you get
become,
residency.
you get, yeah. And that
Much
basically
lower threshold.
skyrocketed. Yeah, well, house prices were lower at that point, and so you could get a lot of house in like Lisbon or Porto, which are beautiful port cities, and it made housing unaffordable for local residents. Spain had the same thing; they had a golden visa program, which was the same €500,000 property investment, and it's been criticized for creating artificial demand in luxury real estate markets, particularly in Barcelona and Madrid. And they've now responded by adding a second land transfer tax for foreign residents. Greece has a similar one with one of Europe's most affordable at €250,000, has led to substantial foreign investment, but again, rising housing costs, especially in Athens and the popular islands. And it also probably led to a Yacht Week taking place, which is, who knows about.
I was in Mykonos
and
this summer. It's
all the Mykonos people. It's just the whole country's overrun by influencers now. So what are you going to do?
That's right. That's why I was there. I had my DJI Osmos gadget film and everything. I was good to go.
Yeah, there you go. So there's a lot of criticisms. The most common criticisms that we see for golden visa programs like this: artificial inflation of property values, creation of ghost neighborhoods. Canada, this is really popular, like where you see basically a lot of vacant real estate where investment properties remain vacant, displacement of local residents from urban centers close to jobs because they can't afford it because they're competing with wealthy foreigners, money laundering concerns, and the lack of proper vetting. These international examples provide a little bit of a context on why there could be negative impacts and criticisms on Trump's gold card in the US, particularly in major metros where housing affordability is already a big concern. And US housing affordability is actually as bad as it was heading into the global financial crisis.
Right. I wanted to add here before we get too far away about the replacement rate. I have some numbers for you that you might like.
Yeah. Hit me with the replacement rate, but also hit me with that math that you showed me on how many of these citizenships they would need to sell to to balance the budget.
First, I'll hit you with. I got you. I'll hit you with. By the way, I'm a big fan. And one day Twitter is going to sponsor us, but Grok 3 is incredible. So okay, it seems. Let's cover the fertility replacement rate. Okay, so in demographic terms, the replacement rate refers to the total fertility rate needed for a population to sustain itself without growing or shrinking, assuming no net migration. For most industrialized countries, including the US, this is approximately 2.1 children per person. This accounts for the fact that each person needs to give birth to a slightly more than 2 children to replace herself and her partner, with the extra 0.1 covering infant mortality and other factors. As of the recent data, the US total fertility rate is well below this replacement level. In 2023, the TFR was reported at about 1.62 births per person. So we're low. The rate has remained below 2.1 since the early 1970s, with a notable dip during the COVID pandemic, hitting 1.64 in 2020. There you go. Some facts for you. All right, let's talk about, let me see where I can bring this up here. Okay, because I know that, here it is, perfect. So part of the reason that Trump is bringing in this gold card is to help battle national debt in the US. So as of February 24th, 2025, the US national debt's around 36.22 trillion, T with a T, trillion. Now, each gold card is bringing in $5 million. So to cover the 36.22 trillion, you divide that by the debt of the card, that would be roughly 7.24 million cards would erase national debt. Now, I don't know if 7.24 million cards is something that's going to happen. That's a lot of wealthy individuals. But I think Trump mentioned he expects around 1 million to be sold is his expectation.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that reasoning, So.
Yeah, I guess the question is, are there that many wealthy people? Like how many people in the world have over $5 million? There's like, as of December 2023, the stat that I'm looking at right now says 8.4 million people with a net worth of 5 million or more. And that's not 5 million liquid, right? So, and it's not like somebody's going to spend all of their population or all of their money to go to the US. So I would say probably selling 1 million of them is
a stretch, a marketing ploy. But my thing was, I was looking into the EB-5 visa as well. Okay. And maybe I'm missing it. And honestly, maybe you can fill me in on this, but The EB-5 visa, the main purpose was for people to invest in the US and also create jobs. I think, as far as I'm aware, there are no requirements in terms of how many employees or anything other than really just a $5 million investment to get that golden card. Whereas the EB really helped with creating jobs. And that was actually a prerequisite of that EB-5 visa, right? I think he's assuming that with a $5 million investment that they're going to be bringing businesses here, going to be bringing on and opening companies and allowing Americans to work for those companies. But I don't know if there's any actual regulations so far that's came into effect. Do you know of anything?
No, but I mean, in order for this to actually get passed as a bill, like it would have to have some exceptions. Like it's not just going to be like, hey, $5 million, come on over, right? Like he can come up with all the ideas that he wants, but they all still have to get turned into policy, right? And in that process, they add all of the bureaucratic elements that we described.
Right. Okay. Do you want to cover the 5 most affordable golden visa programs as of like 2025?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, you give me the 5 most affordable, and I'll go through the most expensive ones.
All right. 5 most affordable golden visa programs as of 2025. We have number 1, Cambodia, with a $100,000 investment. Next, number 2, North Macedonia, with a 200,000 euro real estate investment. Number 3, Greece, with a 250,000 euro real estate investment. Number 4, Turkey, with a 400,000 real estate investment. And number 5, Latvia, with a 250,000 euro government bond investment. What does that mean, man?
You have to buy government bonds, basically. Basically, when you buy a government bond, it's like basically you're giving a mortgage to the government, right? So you're giving them 250,000 euros, and they will pay you an interest rate and then eventually return your money.
Well, there you go.
Let's jump to the 5 most expensive golden visa programs to see how the US stacks up as well. So Australia, 5 million Australian dollars, which is approximately $3.3 million. New Zealand, 3 million, which is 1.8 million USD. Singapore, 1.85 million USD. Monaco, 1 million bank deposit plus a property purchase. And the UK, £2 million investment, but the program is currently suspended. And maybe worth looking at what are the 5 most popular programs of this type for US investors. Do you want to hit me with that?
I would love to hit you with that, man.
5 most popular programs for US investors. Portugal, even despite recent changes, the grandfathered applications continue. Malta, which we chatted a little bit about in the retirement episode, offers EU citizenship pathway. Italy is attractive for cultural and lifestyle reasons as well as being affordable. I mean, Italy is basically in deflation because their population's been in decline due to aging population. If you want to get an understanding for what we're talking about more on what an aging population looks like, Italy would be a really good example. Japan as well. Spain, popular obviously for its quality of life and EU access as well as affordability. Montenegro, growing in popularity due to low cost of living and potential EU membership. It's worth noting that a lot of these investment thresholds change pretty frequently, and a lot of these are under fire right now. So you want to consult a professional in this regard.
I think we're missing Dubai.
I got it in
all
there.
The Dubai
realtors.
I was giving you a softball just for you to take it away.
Yeah. I mean, Dubai is obviously an interesting case study in the golden visa landscape. While not traditionally categorized among either the most or least expensive programs, they do have a golden visa program that's been super popular. It's 2 million AED, which is about 545,000 USD. So on the cheaper end, based on the lists that we just read, for real estate investment. They have 10-year visas for investors and specialized talents and 5-year visas for properties valued at 5 million AED or more. And
what is a specialized talent?
I guess like just a job. Yeah, exactly. Realtors mostly. Influencer.
I was going to say content creator, influencer.
Selling protein powder on Instagram.
Dude.
Stuff like that, yeah.
TikTokers. I'm sold. I'll be in Dubai next.
Yeah, for sure. But it's the big one there is that people want to go there because it's tax-free, right? Which has made it really popular for high net worth individuals who can relocate their income streams to other jurisdictions. And I mean, you are seeing a ton of people moving there right now, a lot of wealth going to Dubai.
Yeah, I've heard some crazy stories about Dubai. I've actually never been and really would like to go. I've heard the money there is insane, and I'm so curious. I see a lot of TikToks and Instagram stuff about, like, people leaving their keys on like the hood of their Rolls Royce and then going for dinner, coming back and it's still there. I wonder if that's a real thing or if that's just like a pretend Instagram TikTok. All right, let's argue as friends here. I'll give you the arguments in favor of the golden visa, and you can give me the arguments against, and I'll take it away. So here are some common arguments in favor of the golden visa program. Direct foreign investment. So these programs bring significant capital into the host country's economy, potentially funding development projects and infrastructure. You got job creation. Investment requirements often lead to new business ventures or real estate developments that create employment opportunities for local residents. We have economic diversification. So wealthy immigrants often bring expertise, international connections, and new business practices that can help diversify the local economy. You have the tax revenue. So high net worth individuals contribute to the tax base through property taxes, business taxes, and consumption. And then you have tourism boost. So golden visa holders often become ambassadors for their adopted country, encouraging tourism and business connections from their home countries. So the economic recovery tools, several countries have successfully used golden visa programs to help recover from economic crisis by attracting foreign investment when traditional sources of capital were limited. Lastly, we have the competitive advantage. So countries with attractive golden visa programs can gain an edge in the global competition for talented and wealthy individuals who might contribute to economic growth. Mic drop.
Good summary. Yeah. I mean,
Not bad.
it is interesting too, because I think that, you look at some of these other countries that are failing to attract global talent, and seeing their populations decline. And you wonder, like the Chinas or Indias of the world, right, where it's really hard for them to attract talent from outside of those countries. And but they never had to worry because their populations were growing before. But now that both of those countries have fallen below the replacement rate, as we mentioned earlier in the episode, you've got a bit of a problem on your hands.
But see, I wonder the difference between having this gold card in the US and having like a golden visa in some of the countries we mentioned earlier, like Cambodia and North Macedonia, Greece, Turkey. I think the people that are going to those countries are likely not going there to, and this is just a me speaking because I don't even know, but I would assume the people that are going there are more likely going, especially Greece, probably going to retire or wind down, versus the people that would maybe be coming into the US, I feel like would be coming here
up, baby,
to get fired up, create a few businesses.
Get fired up.
The American dream, baby.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Thanks, man.
It isn't like it's interesting though, right? A lot of people say like America is the best place to make the money, and Europe is the best place to spend it, right? It is. It's beautiful and chill over there.
Right. That's what I mean. Like I think the people that come here are different.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I would say like for sure the visa programs for, anybody that I know like in the Portugal golden visa program, we're basically moving over there again, like just to chill, have a nice like summer home, whatever.
Right.
Talking a little bit about countries like that and the ones that we mentioned before, we'll kind of easy segue into the big arguments against golden visa programs, right? The big one is that they distort housing markets. So you basically bring a bunch of wealthy buyers into the market, which makes it harder for your local people to compete. That would make it more unaffordable, make housing more unaffordable for local residents, especially in urban areas. And like Portugal's a really good example. Portugal has seen the worst deterioration in housing affordability since 2015 in the world. Canada's number 2, and the US is not doing well either. We're going to cover this in another episode, in our next episode. But those like that's bad, and that gives you a bit of social unrest. You can see it in Canada, right? Like in Canada, people are so mad with the government because they can't afford anything. Right. This really creates a bit of a social inequality in the country, where you almost have like a two-tier immigration system that favors wealthy individuals over skilled workers or refugees, et cetera, who could contribute more meaningfully to society rather than just basically bringing their money there and paying for stuff. Although there was a recent stat that I think was it Wall Street Journal published it that basically showed that like I think over 50% of consumption is comes from like the top 10% of U.S. population. So you do need rich people there, like buying stuff. They do contribute to the local economies, etc. You know, maybe they're hiring staff or drivers or, you know, whatever, right? They're getting stuff Amazon to their summer home, or like all of that stuff adds up, right?
Right.
There's obviously risk of security concerns when, if money is the primary thing, you want to make sure that there's sufficient due diligence being done in vetting wealthy applications. Canada is probably a really good example of a place that hasn't done this, where, you know, it seemed to have basically turned Canadian real estate into one of the most efficient places to launder money in the world. And so, you know, there is potential for programs like this to enable money laundering. Real estate's really efficient for laundering money. Like, I'll just put that out there, right? A lot of people use it to do that. And so allowing entry to individuals of any background just because they have money could kind of enable that to take place. You've also got economic displacement. So, you know, you get wealthier people gentrifying neighborhoods. They displace local businesses and residents from those neighborhoods because those people can no longer afford to be there. And that's, I don't know, I mean, that would be generally considered a bad thing by most people, most observers. And the final piece is that, you know, it introduces a little bit of market volatility. You start depending on this, you know, you look at Spain or Portugal, right? Or Canada even, right? Like foreign investment sends the real estate market skyrocketing, and then they remove it with a policy, Canada being like the non-resident speculation tax, and then basically prices drop substantially. And so your local residents are really just along for the ride on that, and they're the ones who end up getting, you know, really getting smoked by those volatilities. Anything you want to add there before I go to ethical concerns?
I wanted to add the number. So right now, 10%, the top 10% of Americans by income account for approximately 50% of total consumer spending. So for example, the top 10% would be those earning roughly above 150,000 annually, depending on the year and adjustments. But breaking it down further, the top 20% of income earners, typically households earning above 100,000 to like 120, contribute to around 38 to 40% of total consumer spending, while the bottom 20%, often earning less than 25 to 30,000, account for just 9 to 10% of consumer spending. Just so you have some hard numbers there.
Yeah, so I guess if you've ever been curious as to why the government cares so much about catering to rich people, this is why, right? You know, why if people are ever like, why is the economy designed to support rich people? Well, they basically prop up the entire economy. Is that a good thing? No. Is it happening? Yeah. And so, like, it doesn't surprise me. There's the chart right there.
It is, yeah. There it is.
Top 10% of earners now account for half of all spending.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's madness. I mean, the crazy part is, like, if you go back in history, and not to get too far from the core message here, but if you go back in history, usually periods of like significant disparity like this end in revolution, right? Like, they end with you know, as you get more and more people pushed into a poorer portion of the population, and you have fewer and fewer people pushed into a wealthier group of the population, eventually you have outnumbered poor people with nothing to lose, who basically do a violent violent takeover of the rich people. Yeah, it happens. It's happened. There's a whole podcast on it called Revolutions by the guy's name's Mike Duncan. He's like one of the best podcasters ever. And
Mike Duncan, I have to Google that.
Yeah, it's dude, if you ever get the chance to listen to Revolutions, it's an epic podcast.
Anyway. Called Evolutions?
Revolutions. It's about revolutions.
Obviously, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to listen to that one, man. So you want me to highlight some of the key points here? Like, I think we covered a lot of the gold card, and I think we covered both sides in terms of like, you know, the pros and the cons. And I'm actually
100%.
curious to see what the reaction we get from this episode is, and what people's opinion on this is, because I think, again, like we mentioned at the beginning of this episode, I think people are super divided, you know. And I'm curious. I think the country of the U.S. is divided enough right now, you know, and now we're throwing this in there, which is another thing. But
yeah,
maybe off topic.
Like, what's that?
No, good. I think off topic a little bit too. Like so I'm in Mexico right now, and since the election, people just assume I'm American. I'm not. I'm Canadian. But here in Mexico, they see me and they think I'm American. So I've noticed significant uptick in TikTok hate since the election.
Really?
Oh my God. Yeah. I have to defend myself.
It makes sense.
I think like I'm gonna slap a Canadian sticker on my car. Like I'm going all out here. But yeah, I definitely noticed a lot, a change in the people in America and the outside looking to Americans and their views on America in general, I think, which is interesting.
It's funny because like, so my experience is similar traveling. Like I'm in California right now, and obviously more left. Like I would say not a ton of Trump voters in California, and some people are like, you know, they'll kind of just talk about it with like just like a political discussion, whatever. But some people, when I've told them that I'm from Canada, they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry about what's going on right now." Like, I was like, it's not your fault. Like, totally cool. Yeah, it's good. We're good. Don't worry. Like,
yeah, don't stress.
Like I'm doing some sort of like espionage down there, like, you know.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, man. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting. Like I've had this discussion on our podcast, The Canadian Real Estate Investor, where, you know, there was always this thing called the North American Union. I don't know if you've heard of it. Like when we were growing up, like, I don't know, like I was a conspiracy kid, and like this shouldn't surprise you, right? But like in high school, right? Like, and there was always like this thing. It was like, oh yeah, like all the politicians are like trying to get this North American Union thing going on, right? I think that that's basically what it is being done here, right? Like I think like logistically, Canada joining the US is probably very difficult.
For sure.
But I think, you know, some sort of like comparable to the EU in North America is probably what Trump is aiming for. It would functionally be the same as Canada joining the US, right? If we had a shared currency, the USD,
right,
and, you know, basically open borders for trade and travel like the EU. Yeah. So like I could see it being within the realm of possibility, within the range of potential outcomes would be Canada actually goes into like some sort of North American Union with the US. That's just my 2 cents. Honestly, I don't think they'll become 51st state.
I'm deep into looking at the North American Union over here. Conspiracy theory.
Are you? Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
it's interesting.
Like, yeah, read up on it. It's interesting.
Crazy. But
anyway, yeah, I feel like this was a good app. If you enjoyed it, please share it with your mom. Text it to your therapist. You know, like, subscribe, comment, leave us a review if you're on a platform that does that, 5 stars, whatever. And
follow us on social media.
Yeah, follow us on social media, especially Dave. Lots of dancing, TikTok videos. So,
that's right.
But yeah, that's about
all
it.
The tips.
We'll see you next week. Next episode, I think we're going to be doing the worst deterioration in affordability in the world since 2015. So, see you there.